Okay, guys, you're all very welcome. Thank you for coming in so promptly for 2 o'clock, straight after a nice lunch and a nice morning. Hopefully you've been enjoying the event so far. Hands up who's been at this event before. Oh, great, yeah. That's what you want to see, people who get value out of it and keep coming back for more and more. So guys, I'm in an unusual role for me today because I'm acting as a facilitator. So I've been given a job, which is in a number of parts. One is I'm going to set the context for our topic, which is going to be around NIS, DORA, in the era of the compliance that we have. Is security good enough? And I'm going to be joined by 4 experts in this field, all representing different companies, different viewpoints, different areas, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 10 minutes or so just to talk about the status of where we are in relation to things like the compliance burden, the compliance challenge, regulations. And if anybody saw the keynote this morning, I'll use a couple of the slides out of that just as reference points that we can talk around it. And then what I'll do is I'll introduce our speakers. They'll talk for some time. And then we can do some Q&A as well at the end of each one. So this is going on for 1 hour and 10 minutes. So batten down the braces, but it'll be worthwhile. We keep it entertaining and we keep it as interesting as possible. So firstly, in relation to context, this visual that I used here was talking about the fact that legislation is always going to be behind innovation. And that's the reality of the era and the time that we're in. Things are going to innovate faster. People are going to come up with ideas. That is humanity itself, just thriving, innovating, crafting things in different ways and working ahead. If you are targeting and thinking that compliance is equal to security or compliance is equal to resilience, you're making a big mistake. They are nowhere near the same kind of things, right? Your lowest baseline is going to be compliance. It's going to be regulations because they have to be, in many ways, vendor neutral. They can't be very specific. It takes time to write them. They're written by the likes of lawyers and full of legalese, and it takes a long time, and they're quite stale by the time the reality of the technology that they are trying to safeguard against and trying to protect the use of is in place. So we need to adjust our mindset to that. And in that context, we look at where we are today from the point of view of, I'll pick 3 regulatory instruments, okay? We've got the NIS2 directive. The NIS2 directive is to be transposed into law on October the 18th of last year. Now, because it's a directive, it has to be transposed into local law in each state right around Europe, okay? And some states are behind, such as Ireland. That doesn't mean it is not going to be the law. It is not the target of the law and what's called for within it. That's what it is, right? Now, we have DORA, the Digital Operation Resilience Act. Aimed mainly at the financial sector. I had a couple of interesting conversations earlier on with people that thought, oh my God, there's so much less demand around the world in relation to DORA these days or whatever. Yeah, we even see that in relation to our DORA training courses because a lot of people, their mindset was internally in organizations, well, DORA is done because DORA came into effect on January the 17th, 2025. Oh, DORA's done. No. DORA's only begun on the 17th of January 2025. And now, for example, anyone who's working in that space, their registers are being sent in to the competent authority. The competent authority sends them to supervisory authorities. They come back to decide who in the ICT industry is a critical third-party provider. And then we'll have the supervision and supervisory audits beginning probably in Q3, Q4 to the financial sector and the ICT sector that supports the financial sector. Okay, so already I've just talked about 2. Okay, I've talked about the NIS directive, which is wide and encompassing, way beyond NIS1. So that is important entities and critical entities within a country, if you like, a state, anything to make so. This goes not just what you think of electricity and gas and so on, but food production. Those kind of things are all within this. So you got that all encompassing. Now you might think to yourself, why do you have a financial sector and you've got the NIS2 on your plate and you've got DORA on your plate, what do you do? Well, DORA is what's known as a leg specialist to NIS2, and that means that it's overarching. So if you have to be compliant with both, you just compliant with DORA. And that's because there's a lot more detail in DORA, and it's a lot more rigorous in what's being required within that space. And then on the right-hand side, we have, in a post-Brexit world, the UK Operational Resilience Framework. Okay, that is basically if NIS2 and DORA had a baby, right? It would be the UK Operational Resilience Framework, right? It's quite pragmatic. It's a bit more energetic. It's a bit more commercially orientated, I feel, in some of the parts of it. Now, the common thread of all those three pieces are that the people who are on the hook for digital resilience are the management board of the organization, not effectively maybe someone who has a title of CISO or IT manager or IT security manager, whatever. It's whoever is managing that organization legally is responsible. When I say legally responsible, the PRA fined the CIO of the Trustee Savings Bank £81,000 sterling personally for doing a crap job. And these are the kinds of things we're going to be seeing. That if you're not doing the job properly, you can't prove it's done properly and so on, individuals will be fined. Okay, not just the organizations. Now, this morning I talked about, do we need any more stark reminders like the power outage across the Iberian Peninsula on April 25th of this year and all the electricity being knocked out? Was that a geopolitical attack from a nation state, or was it just bad luck, or was it weather? And how lost everybody was without that infrastructure. That's why we have NIS2, to make sure we've got resilience in place. We have Marks and Spencer's, 700 million wiped off their valuation because a gang of kids who are well coordinated and smart are working together to be able to take down organizations like that. Now, these are the poster child for being crap at your job. And that's like, where's the digital resilience in Marks and Spencer's? If a ransomware attack in this day and age can take out and cause that kind of impact in an organization. Resilience is about being prepared that things will happen. How do you respond and how do you recover? It's not about just proactively trying to defend against things all the time. It's acknowledging things are going to go wrong, and when they go wrong, how will you respond and how will you recover? You know, the crime isn't that you got hit with, or the penalty, or if you like, the bad part of it isn't that you got hit with ransomware. It's, well, why was it so impactful? Why did it take you so long? These are the questions that should be asked around those kind of things. And the key to all of this, and embracing in this area, is what we talked about in more detail this morning, is beyond just digital resilience, but it's embracing AI in this space as well. And because AI is a double-edged sword, it is both something we can use as a shield to defend us. It is also something that the bad guys are using and innovating. I talked this morning about deep fakes. We looked at all that whole area. So cyber criminals, the underground economy is worth over 10 trillion in 2025. They are innovators, entrepreneurs. They're leveraging all this kind of technology against us. They're our adversaries. So forget about nation states for the moment. Forget about even just operational mishaps around digital systems. But these regulatory frameworks are some of our best weapons we can use to defend against that. Because why? Because it gets leadership involved. They're on the hook for this. Personal fines, accountability, oversight, governance, all comes from the top down. And you'll never get the tail to wag the dog. It's going to have to come from the head down to control and have a proper framework and proper security posture in place to protect an organization, have resilience in place. So this is the context of our four speakers here that we're going to talk about different aspects of this, different ways their organizations on the front lines are helping organizations like yours, and what they've learned and what their insights are in that space too. I think that is pretty much me, just to finish off with one particular piece, which is what all of this is boiling down to. This morning, I talked about trust. So when you trust something, you're vulnerable to it. Okay, the ultimate trust in life is love, right? The ultimate vulnerability and so on. And there's many studies done on trust about why two twins trust things in different ways, same biology, same upbringing, nature, nurture, yada, yada, but they've totally different outlooks on what they trust and what they don't trust. So it's still something that's been studied hugely. But how do you go from marble to mobile? So from marble to mobile is where, for example, this is what I mean by the likes of banks. Banks used to impress you by you walked in, you're on a marble floor. And then there was brass fittings across the piece, and the money, that so-called money that was in the bank, was guaranteed by gold bullion, kinetic bullion you could touch and so on and feel. That's how they established trust with you. Big, tall buildings, pillars, all that good stuff. How do you do that now in a mobile world, in a digital world, and so on? How does Revolut attract 40 million customers? How do they build digital trust? So digital trust is the key to success in everything we're doing. And it's not that your customers, your clients are expecting perfection. in relation to, oh, nothing will ever go wrong. It's how do you handle it? I've had so many different conversations here with people over the last few hours about, oh yeah, I got an email from the CEO of Marks and Spencer's, pathetic, yeah, all this kind of stuff. It's how you handle it. Things will go wrong. You know, digital resilience and all those 3 X that I talk about, they count in global warming as a factor. The things you don't have control over, the physical, the environment, and so on. Things will go wrong. How do you respond and recover? You can't just put your hand up in the air and go, we didn't have a plan B. Or we have backups and we back up of our data. That's not resilience. That's part of business continuity and disaster recovery. That's not resilience. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. And there's a slight change here, so I have to go to my notes. It's Michael Simpson. He's Senior Sales Engineer with Lookout. I'll give his bio a go here. With a 10-year military background in highly sensitive IT infrastructure, Michael brings a rare and potent perspective to cybersecurity. His subsequent 5 years as a covert surveillance technician for a commercial spyware vendor provided him with an insider's view into the methodologies of sophisticated threat actors. This experience uniquely positions him to demonstrate the absolute necessity of comprehensive security measures against all tiers of adversaries. I'm looking forward to this. Thanks, Michael. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, so now you know I was a bad guy as well as a good guy. I'm a good guy now, trust me. Okay, so very, very quickly, Michael Simpson, you've heard all about me. Who do I work for? Lookout are the leaders in mobile endpoint security and mobile-specific threat intelligence and research. We work with advisories, we work with governments. They use our knowledge and our findings to help profile their policies, and we'll come up to that a little bit in NIST. I don't need to tell you that mobile is the largest threat surface at the minute. A couple of news stories from the last month or two. Would these worry you as an organisation? They seem to deal with pretty personal, good catch, they seem to deal with pretty personal threats. How about some of these ones from the last month or two? I'm not going to talk about Marks and Spencer's or all that kind of stuff, but if you look far left enough, left boom enough, it does come back to mobile. This is all hitting organisations, and it's not just over the last month or two. This is going back years. So yes, I know that policy is slow to move, and it will follow eventually after the attacks and after technology. But mobile attacks have been going on for years and years and years. And we're going to look at some of those attack profiles, and then we're going to look at is secure enough, is compliant secure enough, and what actually is secure enough from a mobile perspective. Every type of threat actor profile is targeting you through mobile. It is simple. Why are they going to try and target you through the firewalls, through your desktops, through your laptops, your servers, your web presence, when you've got this fantastic device in your hand that has access to your full life for social engineering, reconnaissance, initial access, and it's completely unprotected? 97% of organizations don't have any sort of mobile EDR capability or mobile telemetry capability in their SOC. CSVs, this is who I used to work for. These are the good guys, but they're all using mobile surveillance capabilities. Predator, Pegasus, Finfisher, they may be the good guys, they're not using it for good all the time. Are you a target? Probably not. But we've worked with 2-man law firms that have been hit by this type of capability. They didn't think they were a threat until they were working for the member of a royal family in the Middle East, for example. Nation-state APT groups, we mentioned the power outage a second ago. These will be targeting other nation states, looking for espionage, looking for financial reward, looking for sabotage. You might not work directly for the energy companies, the water companies, the education organisations, but I'm sure you're in their supply chain somewhere. I'm not going to try and take down a government by attacking a government. I'm going to enter lower their attack chain. And we're seeing quite a lot of evidence of mobile attacks. In fact, we've got lots of publications on all of these APT groups. Ransomware gangs, anything's up for game. Anything and anybody. We'll hit anything. We'll hit Marks and Spencer's, we'll hit hospitals, we don't care. It's all financial reward. And these aren't massively organised, highly capable gangs. These are 16 and 17-year-olds in the UK, in the US. We've got a couple of them. They're still as prolific as ever. You see Scattered Spider up on the screen. I've been rocking this slide now for at least 2 years and talking about Scattered Spider for about 4 years. And obviously, they're in the news massively this week. And then just scammers. Those texts you come through, they're opportunistics. They're going to stick a QR code over a parking sign in a railway station and hope that you just scan it. Maybe they'll get a couple of quid out of you. Maybe they'll get nothing out of you. Maybe they'll get enough information to sell the information to the ransomware gang so that they can create a better attack. So are mobile devices in scope of any compliance regulations? But there are a number of regulations worldwide that have already been going for a while that have changed their requirements and have got more specific. Cyber Essentials in the UK is one of them. Cyber Essentials used to say any device that can process corporate data must be protected. Anti-malware, anti-phishing, vulnerability and patching. Last year, in fact, no, 2 years ago, in their latest requirements, they got really specific. Mobile devices are in, mobile, in every requirement, to the point they published this chart that says not only are managed corporate devices to be protected, personal devices too. If a personal device can access your corporate information, it is now in scope. It needs to be protected. Vulnerability and patch management, antivirus, anti-malware, anti-phishing, even if it's an unmanaged device. So how are you going to do that? And we'll come on to that in a second. NIST, exactly the same. We work with NIST, we advise them. They've got cracking 100-page documents that go into detail about all the different threat vectors on mobile. And they publish a number of advisories and publications for how you can secure your applications, how you can secure your devices. So this is member state information advising their countries, their organizations, how they should be committing to these changes. ISO 27001. I'm sure there's loads of you in this room now that have got ISO 27001. You've all got that tick box. You haven't got any sort of mobile endpoint security on your device. I've got the tick box though, I'm secure enough, it's absolutely fine. Very, very specific mobile device policy there, looking at physical protection, looking at the 4 threat vectors we particularly look at. So how are you really passing this if you haven't got that security? And is that tick box really enough? Are you worried about getting attacked, or are you worried about passing an audit? And finally, this is so prolific that MITRE have released an attack framework. I know it's quite small to read there, but you can see all the TTPs. It's not 1 or 2. You can scan a QR code and get mobile malware on your device. These are all the TTPs that are known to be leveraged in order to attack specifically the mobile devices. This is only for mobile. So having to align to that is a bit of a nightmare. Now, we've been doing this since 2007, so we kind of feel that this is on us a little bit. Industry should have been educating everybody, and we're doing our best to educate people, but mobile is the poor cousin when it comes to security. NCSC says mobile is hard. It's not hard, it's so easy. You deploy an agent down to a device and that's it. It's also not expensive. It's low-hanging fruit. It's so cheap to deploy, so we just don't get why people are doing it. So let's come on to NIS2 and DORA a little bit. Now, obviously, these are directives, right? So we're waiting on the member states to give advice on how organizations should be meeting this. In the UK, they're probably going to be using something like CAF, the Cyber Assessment Framework. We're going to be using Cyber Essentials, which is very, very specific. You must have a firewall here that does this and this. You must have mobile device security that does this and this. So obviously, we're waiting for advice for the various member states. And I cover all of Northern Europe, and I'm getting all sorts of people saying, what's your NIS2 advice? Tell me what your state is advising you to do. What framework do you need to comply with? But what makes it very, very clear is they've got these requirements here, and this is both in NIS2 and DORA. They're reutilizing that wording. Essentially, any device that can process that corporate information, that digital information, is in scope. So if you've got a personal device and you manage to log into Teams because your organization didn't lock down Teams, that device is now in scope. So that means your mobile device needs to be covered by cybersecurity risk management, incident reporting, information sharing. Now, Irish NCSC have published some guidance in the MDM for Public Sector Bodies document, which I'm going to go into in a little bit more detail now. I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to fly through this. They do a fantastic job of detailing all the various mobile threats, malware and phishing attacks, compliance of regulations, level of control, data leakage, malicious and unsafe applications, USB connections. This is all fantastic. This is stuff we've been talking about since 2007, spyware, phishing. You get to the bottom and you say, what are your recommendations? We recommend you deploy an MDM. MDM doesn't protect against any of that. Intune, Workspace ONE, Avanti, they don't look at malware, they don't look at URL filtering, they don't look at the networks you're attached to. So you cannot mitigate a single threat that they've been talking about. Or, sorry, you can mitigate some of the threats, but not all the threats, certainly not the serious ones, with an MDM. So we believe that state information, that advice that's been given so far, and I realize it's not out there fully, is not correct, and it certainly isn't mitigating you. So let's take a look at one quick scenario out of NIS2, the incident notification scenario. Very first step, boom has happened, we're at right of boom now, early warning within 24 hours. If you're secure enough, you have nothing at all. How are you going to do warning if the attack started on your mobile? You've got no telemetry coming into your SOC to say that your users clicked on a link where they entered their credentials. All you see is that somebody logged into Office 365 from China. You saw nothing left of boom. If you're following NIS2 and DORA, you're deploying an MDM. MDMs can't see those threats either. So you cannot do early warning within 24 hours if you don't have any sort of mobile telemetry. Again, with that initial notification in 72 hours, how are you going to do any investigation? Again, you've got no agent, you've got no telemetry. You don't know if a user used his mobile phone to download an application because he was told that Netflix was free if he downloaded this app. It could be sideloaded, it could be from the Google Play Store. I can show you 100 apps right now on the Google Play Store and probably 10 on the Apple App Store that are all spyware. And we work with Google on that takedown process, by the way. They just don't always listen to us. Reporting the information. How can you report that you've been attacked on your mobile device? These indicators of compromise, and this is how we're going to roll those indicators of compromise out as well. And bearing in mind that these directives are not just about cybersecurity, they're about cyber resilience. So if you're going to get attacked and you've got these indicators of compromise on your, let's say your laptops, your desktops, what's the first thing you do? You roll out a deny list to your firewalls. You roll out a deny list to your endpoint protection on your desktop and your servers to block any access to that C2 communication. Cool, not a problem. Let's do that. Let's use our proxies. Let's use our firewalls to block that attack, stop it in its tracks, and then try and remediate and gain back control. Obviously, you can't do that on your mobile, so that mobile surface is still completely unprotected. You've got no telemetry. You don't know if the incident's still ongoing. You've got no ability to remediate that incident either. It's not difficult. It's completely possible. Please reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. And, you know, some really interesting points there as well before we move on to the next speaker. And if I emphasize some of the points there Michael made as well, especially around DORA. I was saying about NIS2 being a directive and transposed into each country. DORA is an act, so it's a law. Everything in DORA is the law, and it's required right across Europe. And all the specifics and the details that get into it are a lot deeper than NIS2. You have 1,500 pages of RTS documents and ITS documents related to it. So when people download DORA PDF, they go, oh, it's easy, it's all kind of vague legalese stuff and everything else like that. You get into the details of the 2 batches of documents that were downloaded, and you'll get into that, the specifics of that. And it goes beyond things like CIA triad and, you know, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of protecting a data asset. Mobiles are most certainly in. Most certainly in, because it's about the authenticity of data as well. And anything that has been defined as essentially a critical or important business function under DORA, the law says that all of that has to be tracked and traced. Left of boom, to use Michael's phrase, which are spot on. So we can see the laws, again here, kind of catching up with where we are in relation to the threat piece. But look, the humans are a very essential part of this. So, and educating and empowering the workforce. What was said, if you've got 10,000 employees, is that 10,000 weak points or 10,000 people that love and protect your business and are going to be loyal and do that? And how to do that with some good training and education. So I'm going to introduce you now to Lorna Burnman, Distribution and Partnership Manager for APAC and EMEA with USecure. Lorna is an experienced IT manager of a global business with 20 plus years experience of navigating the channel. She was a former business owner in the tech space. Through strategic partnerships and innovative solutions, I'm committed to helping MSPs navigate the complex landscape of human-centric cybersecurity threats, creating human firewalls globally, says Lorna. Thanks a million, Lorna. Let's have your presentation, please.
Oh, how do you follow that? It's all very technical. Hello, we all awake? Had a good lunch? Good. So we take the human version. So what I'll try and point out today from a USecure point of view is sort of regulatory updates, how to position USecure as a compliance-first solution, some best practices, and getting started, really. If you haven't heard of us, we are a channel leader in human risk management. So our platform was built for MSPs. It's multi-tenanted, it's multilingual, we can transact in different currencies. We've got some really great partners. Won't bore you with all that, but so we're very good at what we do and we're very dynamic. So obviously, as you've heard, compliance is a global issue. It's not just, one particular country. And each country will have their own compliances, their regulations, their laws, which everybody has to try and adhere to. So it just makes life really, really complicated. As you've heard, there's NIS2, there is DORA, there's HIPAA, ideal globally. So we've got Essential 8 in Australia, we've got POPI in South Africa. So it's a real challenge for businesses across the globe to try and keep on track with everything that they have to remember what to do. So a lot of clients, we are finding that they're not really aware of what the regulations are for some of their clients. So they need to educate themselves. And where do we fit in? Well, we fit in with helping with training those clients. As I say, it can be a real burden. So how do you navigate that? Because it can be overwhelming. So what we try and do is we make our courses and our policies to fall in line with relevant regulations. A lot of our MSPs are now taking advantage of the whole compliance story and turning it into a bit of an opportunity. So if you can show that you understand frameworks and that you can help your clients address those frameworks, then that really helps you as a business to stay very sticky. Compliance as a service is a growing field. So understand what your clients need, upskill your internal teams. You don't have to be, you don't have to go on these laborious courses. You just have to make yourself familiar with what each compliancy involves. DORA, as Paul mentioned, is the overarching, okay, it's finance, but anybody within that supply chain of a financial organisation needs to be aware. They need to be compliant with it. So just do some research. If you talk in the talk, people will generally trust you. So, it's all about education. NIS2, there we go, some figures. Everybody's affected now. It's coming down through enterprise, down through small business. There are 10 minimum measures. We can't tick all the boxes. We would never profess to do that. But what we can help is with enabling a lot of those areas. So we did a project where we mapped to CIS frameworks. That's a globally recognised business framework. So we mapped what we can deliver our platform. And because of our policy management and deployment tool, we cover off a lot of those, as well as the key security awareness training. Along with compliance, you've got cyber insurance. Cyber insurance expects, if you've got cyber insurance for your business, you will need to prove that your users have been trained. DORA, as I've mentioned, is the same. You have to be able to point out, you're covering the basics, you're covering the phishing, simulations, you're covering passwords, you're covering how to control the devices and access to the devices and what those devices are connecting to. So, obviously, these guys have told you all about the mobile side. I think I might have to come and see you later. So what we do is we make it really quick and easy to deploy, to scale. We provide you courses that cover the compliancy topics. We provide the policies for you. We give you the libraries. If we haven't got a library that is relevant, you contact us and we will write one. So we have given you the ability to scale your business up. When you're talking to your clients, discuss compliancy. Small businesses aren't always aware, so make them aware. Cyber Essentials is a big one in the UK. When we're having conversations with end users, we're saying, do you deal with finance? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, you really ought to be looking at this framework. So we work with our MSPs and end users alike to make them aware. Also, as an MSP, you can, you've got that that extra revenue opportunity, because you can just have security stacks. So design your security stacks around that. Offer them QBRs. You know, boards and directors love reports. So, you know, bring in your QBRs every quarter. Yeah, we're going to deliver these really good reports, and you'll have a really pretty PDF to look at, and you know, you'll be able to understand it because you're not technical and you don't want to be. So we will give you this simple report to tell you how your business is faring on a risk score. So we completely score the business and then we monitor the users. So as I say, it's important to identify the key people in the organisation and those that are at the higher risk. It's usually the CEOs, the people with privileged access, the people that are going to be targeted by the cyber criminals. So it has to come from the top down. It's no point just doing it on a section of your employees, because it just takes one person to make a mistake. So we deliver targeted training. Our training programs are delivered uniquely to each individual. So each person will have a gap analysis assessment. We will establish your knowledge across 36 security points. And then the course is designed on your score. If you get a low score in, say, working from home, your initial courses will start with working from home. So it's no point training you on what you know best first. We need to train you on what you really don't know first and build that out. We have enough courses, 1 a month for 3 years. So each individual person will have a different course. That gives us your USP and our USP. Monitor. We've got analytics and reports, as I said, that monitor. You know, verify what their training, you know, what the training is doing by putting phishing injections in there. Test your users. We've got dark web monitoring. So you can look at what the dark web has got out on an individual and then educate them. Tell them you need to remediate this. You need to go and sort it out. This is the implications. Are you aware? Most people aren't aware of what the dark web is. You know, they just look at you and scratch your head. Think it's something to do with spiders, but it's not. So, you know, with the tools that we give businesses an easy way in. So tailor your compliance. It doesn't take any extra effort because all the tools are in the platform already. It's all fully automated, so it makes delivery really easy. We can have you up and running and deployed in 15 minutes. We have full support, 5-minute reaction time, I kid you not. So you really need to emphasise the value you give to businesses. Oh, press the wrong button. Okay, so risk matters. Get the phishing data, deliver it, and then you can turn that into a cross-sell. So if you are saying, okay, you've got dark web, you know, it looks like your user's doing this, you can upsell. You can say you've got a gap in this. If you know your compliance, give them a security assessment. It's all about opportunities. Again, automated, keep being proactive. A lot of MSPs can't. Can you prove you're training everybody? With that, all you can. It's all audited. For ISO, we've got a reference from an ISO assessor saying our policy management tool is one of the best they've seen for being able to clearly see what user has signed what policy, when they're due to sign it next, and what version it is. So every document that's changed with ISO, you have to give it a different version number. We do that. So clients will try and put all the burden on you. So it's your turn to actually say, actually, it's a shared responsibility, security. It's like when cloud first came out, it was like, oh, I'll put everything in the cloud, I won't have to do anything. Actually, you do, because it's your data, it's your users, so you have to protect it. And again, it's the same. Look at industry-specific frameworks. You know, ignorance is not bliss. Don't miss an opportunity. Audits, you need to be able to provide clear, concise data to prove that you are ticking those boxes in the event of anything going wrong. So next steps, we say standardise compliance onboarding for every client. Automate your delivery, so that means you have less work to do, which, let's face it, is what we all aim to do. And package compliance as an extra layer of security. That will make you really sticky with your clients. It's very, very important to have, it's very important to deliver, and it's even more important to be able to help you keep your business sustainable, make money, and keep your clients on board. And this is a really good way of doing that. You can come and see me and we can book a meeting or a demo if you'd like. But that's me. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. And again, just to re-emphasize some of the key points there, the education piece is, the requirements these days go far beyond that tick box compliance training, hey, don't click on a link kind of stuff. And I've got personal experience of the USecure platform, and I strongly recommend people look at it. It's really, really good. When we look at things like DORA, there's a legal requirement to train the board to a certain level, subject matter experts within the organization, as well as the people that are taking care of the systems, as well as general ICT risk management training, as well as training on incident response with your ICT vendors, so you can handle a response. There's lots of different layers and specifics within DORA. Again, that's the law. That's not something subjective. That's not something that's coming. That's here. It's the law, and it has to be done. The UK Operation Resilience Framework came in 31st of March. Like I say, it's like that baby between NIS2 and EU DORA from that perspective. But what it is it has, again, those mandates around training and making sure people understand this. There's no plausible deniability that somebody on a board level doesn't understand. The requirement is that they understand. And to understand, they have to be educated until, they don't need to become technical experts, but they need to be educated and understand what the issues are, and to be empowered to make informed decisions, intelligence-led decisions. That's what the concept and the mandate of these regulations are on that base. Now, my next speaker is a bit of a wild card because he's just come in last minute, and I appreciate him coming in and standing in for his colleague. We're going to hear now from Cian from Level Blue. And I'll hand over to Cian and let you explain the rest. Cheers.
Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? So yeah, I'm here today. Very surprisingly, I'm Cian, 36-year-old from Glounthaune in Cork. I was a terrible hurler, terrible soccer player, terrible golfer. But you know what? I always tried very hard. Absolutely love sport. Film is probably my big passion. James Bond, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, anything at all. Doctor Who being my favorite TV show. I'm a husband to a fabulous wife, Karen, as I just take a look down to see how I move this along. A dad to two fantastic boys, Ronan and Louis. And in fact, when I told Ronan this morning that I had to be parachuted in to present this, and he said, "Daddy, what are you going talking about?" And I said, "I'm talking about something called DORA." He was like, "Dora the Explorer, Daddy?" I was like, "Oh, I wish. No, not today, not today." But yes, I'm here as a member of the Level Blue team, or I'm sure I'm hearing Level Who, right? Think of Level Blue kind of like the Mercedes Formula 1 team, right? Mercedes started off as Honda Racing in the noughties, were bought by Ross Brawn and a number of his friends, became Brawn GP. After one successful season where they cleaned the board, won the World Championship, drivers and constructors, Mercedes bought them, and they turned into a world-class 7-time World Constructor Champions. 8 times, in fact. Level Blue started off as Alien Vault. How many of you guys can remember Alien Vault here, and the mad aliens and the glow-up sunglasses and stuff at all of these events, right? Alien Vault was acquired by AT&T in 2019. And now AT&T have decided to spin us off as our standalone cybersecurity division. Now, spent a long time today thinking, how am I going to present somebody else's work? How am I going to go through somebody else's slide deck? Now, my wife said to me, she said, "Cian, don't worry, it's just after lunch." She said, "Most of the people in the audience are probably there to get out of the office and aren't going to be listening to me anyway." So I would appreciate that sentiment, everybody. But we'll see how we get on. And something struck me when I was listening to Paul earlier with his introduction. I think Paul did a really, really excellent job of making DORA and NIS2 very accessible, very understandable, and it really spoke to me on how I should approach this, because I do believe that in this industry in particular, we make an awful job of making things incredibly complex. Security is complex by itself. You don't need so-called experts standing up here and making it even worse. And today, what I'm talking about is how incident readiness has now become more important than incident response. How DORA, NIS2, you've got CEXI in the United States, how all of these compliance regulations and derivatives are now forcing SMBs to reach the standard that Paul mentioned earlier. Now, what was interesting about what Paul said earlier was that, and it's quite accurate, these standards are the lowest possible standards. But the reality is that a lot of SMBs, and let's hold our hands up and say probably 95% of businesses in this great country that we have are SMBs, right? They can't achieve that standard. They find it hard for a number of different reasons. We're going to talk a bit about that, talk about the 2025 priorities for response and readiness, and hopefully we can wrap it up in a bow and you guys will be happy that I got off the stage. Okay, so new regulations. Paul's already after framing it. My colleagues are after speaking about DORA, NIS2. They've got CEXI in the United States. And I see that Brian put in a very nice slide about the United States, which is completely irrelevant for all of us here, the fact that they have to report after 4 days. But what actions do clients, SMBs, actually need to take in order to get ready? Materiality is going to be an issue, because what is material? They're going to need to be able to do that. They're going to need to update security incident response processes. Ensure processes are documented. Document use of incident response retainers with third parties. Establish formal government structure over cyber program. Establish formal structure for post-incident analysis. What did I say about making things overcomplicated? All sounds fantastic. But again, how are SMBs going to do it? These are incredibly complex. A lot of businesses out there lack resources for this kind of incident readiness, and they lean on the security services industry for this as trusted advisors. Again, something that Paul mentioned earlier, trust. MSPs, MSSPs, resellers, distributors, consultants, all of you guys are providing a thought leadership that is now invaluable to these organizations as they try to become ready for potential incidents. So what are the top priorities to become incident ready? And AT&T ran a study that I'm going to skip through a few slides because, quite candidly, again, filler, but here we go. What are the top readiness capabilities that are going to be priorities in 2025? The assessment said that risk assessment came out as number one. Absolutely. Fantastic place to start. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror first. If you guys were going to rebuild a house, you would first of all get an engineer to come in. Okay, where do we need to improve? Is there cracks in the foundation? Let's fix that first. Vulnerability management, the next step from risk assessment. Training incident response teams. Okay, I can't remember, someone mentioned about humans. Are they 100 fantastic assets or 100 liabilities? Getting training is essential. EDR, TDR support. These are the priorities that this report found for incident readiness in 2025. Impact of risk assessment, again, quite simple. 6 steps in order to get that, and I'm just taking a look at time. What's motivating incident readiness purchases? Okay, so of course we've talked about the frameworks, DORA, NIS2, a prior incident, customer demand, high profile security incident. Like I remember starting in FireEye, 11 years ago now, and it was just after the JP Morgan Chase breach. Never in my life, straight out of university, could I think of an organization that big that had spent at the time $250 million on security defenses getting hacked. Crazy. directives from leadership, and digital transformation. Now, of course, it's not all bad news, right? You get incident ready. What are the benefits of it? Cost savings. This kind of mitigation is already reducing the chances of a business critical hack. Again, enhanced safety, reduced liability, quick recovery. Okay, it's all like software breaks, attacks happen. How do you respond to them? How do you get back up on your feet? How do you make sure that your customers aren't being affected? Protection of assets, and of course, legal and compliance. So with that, getting your house in order, getting the best practices and approaches in place, what happens when the inevitable happens? How do you respond? What are the top incident response capabilities prioritized in 2025? Incident recovery. I think I could have asked for a show of hands before I changed the slides, and the majority of you guys would have said, put your hand up and said that. Legal and compliance support. Contain the incident. It's like a cancer. As soon as you see it, let's make sure it's not after spreading. Let's contain it and get it out. Evidence handling, and then, of course, the most important, well, not the most important, but when it comes to regulations, incident reporting. Additional incident response priorities, once you've moved past these, digital forensics is becoming more and more important for companies. Incident triage, post-incident analysis. Let's make sure this doesn't happen again. Non-emergency containment, incident notification, and incident recovery. So, in summary, and again, I'm just going to move forward here. DORA, NIS2, these regulations, they're driving a standard of cybersecurity resilience. It's going to be very, very hard for a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses here in Ireland to meet those regulations, which means that there's a huge opportunity for MSSPs, MSPs, vendors alike, to become those trusted advisors, those safe pairs of hands that organizations can lean on and trust. We at Level Blue can provide an awful lot of this, but if you guys walk the floor downstairs, there's some really fantastic organizations and some even better people here who can help everybody in the room. Okay, Paul, thank you so much for your time. Audience, thank you for enjoying my last minute put together presentation. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Now, I'd just like to say, I think Cian did an excellent job, and his family will be very proud of what he did. It's not easy being dropped in at the last minute with someone else's slides and trying to do that. So a round of applause again for Cian, I think. Yeah, seriously. All right, that's good. So guys, one of the things that was interesting in that presentation was, you know, it obviously came from an American perspective to a large degree, because this is a global issue. I've talked about European legislation. I've talked about the UK legislation because they're, you know, close to neighbours and looking at that geographically, that side of the world. But this is something that whether you're dealing with APAC, whether you're dealing with North America, or whatever it happens to be, this is global. And everyone is on the same wavelength here, digital resilience. I'm talking about we're putting stuff together, for example, around Singapore and so on like that. Everything is the same thing, just different versions of Dora the Explorer. She's exploring and she's going all over the world, and it's the same kind of theme at the end of the day, which is resilience on that. So guys, we're up for our final speaker before we go to a Q&A, and this is Josh Bowles. He's Enterprise Sales Director with EMEA and APAC. And Josh leads the Theta Lakes sales effort in EMEA and APAC and has previously held roles at leading software companies including NICE and 8x8. Great stuff. Thanks, Josh. Cheers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh. So I'm going to be speaking to you more about communications, governance and compliance. So a little bit of a different angle from my colleagues up here on the panel as well. So a little bit about Theta Lake. If you haven't heard of us, we are an organisation that sits in a quadrant called DCGA, which is Digital Communications Governance and Archiving. Effectively, we offer compliance solutions for all communications tools from UC to back office, anything across e-coms, so electronic communications, that could be email, chat, anything written, A-coms, audio, so anything voice, and also V-coms, which visual comms, so whiteboarding, polling, Q&A, meetings, anything around those communications platforms. So some challenges that we see in the market and really why we exist, and a few points up here. So 85% of organisations, this is a Gartner study and also pretty much what we're finding as well, and I think this is quite a low figure, are using 4 or more digital communications platforms. So that could be Microsoft Teams, Zoom, that could be Slack, Asana in the back office. So effectively maintaining compliance and legislations, whether that's the FCA, the SEC, the CBI, whichever government body it is, it becomes quite difficult. This moves on to the fact that 68% of firms we see are actually disabling communications tools. So they might roll out Microsoft Teams to their employees, their environment, but they might disable in-meeting chat, whiteboarding, polling, or Q&A, because they've got no way of capturing that and offering a compliance solution around that and meeting those regulatory requirements. This then leads to things like off-channel communications. Again, this could be employees not trying to be bad apples, but effectively trying to do their jobs. If you hinder your employees from being able to use a chat communication tool, they may move to something like WhatsApp or WeChat or SMS. And actually, in the last few years, there's been over $4 billion worth of fines levied globally for organisations like this for off-channel communications. It's a really, really big issue. And again, another Gartner study showed that 80% of customers are going to look to consolidate their archives in the next few years. So currently, there may be a voice archive, a contact center archive, you might have an email archive. And we're seeing that customers are now trying to bring this all into one ubiquitous kind of interface so that they can layer their compliance strategy across all of those archives as opposed to individual siloed solutions. So again, really that's where we exist in helping our customers and helping the market to navigate these regulatory and compliance strategies. The regulated industries that we mainly work in, obviously financial being key. We work with 6 of the top 10 North American banks, also a fair few financial institutions across the UK, all from large right down to SMB, working with the regulators like the SEC, FINRA, CBI, FCA, to make sure that our customers and our partners understand the best way to offer compliance solutions across their tech stack. Government, education, also healthcare, the likes of HIPAA, pretty much any regulated industry, compliance across those communications tools and the way that your employees interact internally and externally is becoming more and more important to meet those regulations. It's a bit of a busy slide, but this kind of shows really the depth and breadth of why we exist. Again, going back to that first point I made around 4 different communications channels per enterprise or per organisation, and I thought that was low. If you just have a look on here and think of a normal organisation or even enterprise, they might have a front office telephony solution, a contact centre, they might have back office integrations like Microsoft Teams, a phone system, they might use things like Asana, they might use things like Slack, Salesforce, CRM. All of these different touch points need to be compliant and remain compliant in line with the regulatory body that they sit under. So again, where we sit in the market is we have over 100 integrations with different platforms, the likes of Zoom, Cisco, Microsoft Teams. We start with the ingestion of that data. Everything starts with good data, and then being able to bring that and levy that all into one place to build risk profiles and remain compliance across the different regions that you might be working in as well. So it's just a view there of kind of a standard enterprise and some of the tools that they may be using, and also the risk factors that could be associated there with them as well. This shows how we tackle the market, and we think this is a bit of a differentiator. So again, I said everything starts with data. If you don't have good data at the start, kind of the solution and the strategy and the AI and the ML that you're looking to get out the back end really won't be there. So typically some organizations in our space like to start in what we call phase 3, which is kind of proactive compliance. So layering compliance solutions over data buckets that already exist. That could be an S3 bucket, Azure, e-coms, ACOMs, and we find that that's a bit difficult and it takes a lot of time to realize value there because they don't have a good visibility of the data. The way we were built as an organization is that everything starts with capture. So we capture that data, we bring it into our global cloud storage where we can actually segment that data by region, we can segment that data by regulation. For example, Germany has different laws to the UK, different laws to the US, different laws to APAC, and they're very stringent around data laws in those different residencies. So everything starts with the capture. We then bring in something like unified search. So We spoke about bringing in lots of different streams, lots of different platforms. It might be Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, Zoom, Asana. And we bring that all into one risk profile where we can actually build up profiles of your employees and your interactions with your customers. So I might speak to John, and then we could start on email, move over to Teams, move over to Slack, move over to Zoom. And it's typically really, really hard to kind of follow that thread of conversation and make sure that conversation is remaining compliant, especially in financial services. By bringing in that unified search and being able to, unified conversation view, be able to see what's happened across all these different platforms, it makes it easy for the regulators and also your compliance team to manage that compliance and regulation. And lastly, proactive compliance. So our AI, machine learning, being able to get good insights out of the data that we're capturing, being able to flag compliance, make it easy for your compliance team to, or an organisation's compliance team to make decisions based on that data. But again, just going back to the unified capture piece, everything starts with good data in the front end is kind of the way that we approach the market. Why is all of this important? Just to cover off some points, maximising the return on investment of your UC stack. You don't want to be a technology procurement advisor or IT buyer, massive investment into Teams or Zoom or Cisco, and then you're having to turn off all these features because you just can't capture it. It's not great user experience. It's not great customer experience. Ultimately, it drives the wrong behaviour. It's a reduced risk of fines, penalties, making sure that you're compliant with the different regulatory bodies. Increasing employee productivity, so enabling your employees, empowering them with technology, as opposed to shutting it down and hindering them and taking away the technology that you've given them. And also minimising the risk of the shadow IT, so off-channel communications, things like WhatsApp and things like that, which obviously cause a huge issue. How do we support regulatory engagement? Well, we've got a team here of very skilled individuals who actually used to work for regulators. We work very closely with the FCA, with the CBI, with the SEC, with all the different regulators to understand what it is that they're looking for, to understand the guidelines that our customers and our partners need to be pushing out to the market, which communications need to be compliant and why, and we can always give good, sound, impartial advice on that as well. And then lastly, just to summarise, I think we've covered most of these points, but really understanding why it's important to manage risk and compliance across collaboration. I think organisations can mitigate this by capturing the comms data, analysing it for risk, and acting at pace to make sure that you capture any potential data leaks or compliance leaks as well. A couple of extra points that can help with that is things like bring your own storage, regional data storage, so global storage data centres, and also that real-time risk detection piece as well. That's me.
To a little note around the presentation from Josh as well. If you were to think today, if you were a financial entity and you had identified a critical important business function, i.e. a banking app, and the regulator came along and asked you how you're securing the communication channels, what would your answer be? Very few organizations will be able to say they have something in place. It's the law, Article 5 of DORA, it's the law to do that. So if you're not doing this with some other way, then you really need to be talking to Josh and his team as well and find out how you can be compliant with the law of the land in that space. That leads me nicely onto the questions. So guys, how are you all feeling at this stage? Been a long day, we're all good? Right, I can see the finish line. They put me onto another panel after this as well, so I'm going to drop dead after all this. But it's all good. So let me start off with some questions for Michael. Michael, in the absence of specific mobile security guidance in EU regulations, is there any guidance from any other regulations or frameworks? I think you touched upon this, didn't you, in your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I would try to stay away from frameworks, to be honest, for reliability when it comes down to security, certainly with mobile. Look at your estate, look at your fleet, look at how people are communicating. We're running a bit of a survey downstairs. What's the first thing you pick up in the morning to look at work? I sit in bed for 30 minutes going through Slack and getting everything done, look like I've been proactive. How often do you use your mobile device? If you just look at what you can get access to, and then look at what you already do for your laptops, your desktops, your firewalls, your SaaS applications, your CASB, your SWIG, all the other stuff. You've invested millions of pounds into all this equipment. to expose the user activity into your SOC and to block in real time. And you've got this massive gaping hole that's been there for 4 hours. 4 hours a day people are using it for. So rather than just focusing on the framework piece, I would really say just reach out to industry, reach out to people that have already done this. Just talk to us. We're more than happy to come in and do education workshops. We just spend doing education workshops all the time without selling a single product, just because everybody needs to be aware. It's a personal problem. It's a human problem. We're the issue more than the technology.
Okay, very well said. Any questions from the audience from Michael, just at this point?
No.
Let me move on to Lorna. Lorna, I'll find a real difficult one here for you. Yeah. Here we go. With DORA and NIS2 now live, this is for 10 points, right? How is U-Secure helping organizations meet these newer expectations while still improving security?
I don't know if anybody in here uses us, but so how we approach it is how I mentioned. We assess everybody as an individual. Individuals, have all different levels of knowledge. We test their knowledge, and then we try and tailor the learning programs to their knowledge, but we also cover off important factors around security that are all aligned with the compliancy. We're constantly updating them. So, we're not a vendor that just writes something and then leaves it. We are literally aligning. We've spoken about DORA. We take advice from those experts that devise and manage these regulations. So, we make it our business to be very close to the people that hold the keys in order, so we're passing on that information and that knowledge. As I say, we're constantly evolving, constantly changing the content. And with the fact that we also monitor everybody and the organisation, we can show a real tangible result in risk scores reducing, and therefore that helps things like cyber insurance and all the other bits and pieces that I mentioned before. So we make a concerted effort to be very proactive around every compliance regulation we come across. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, thanks, Lorna. Poor old Keane's going to have to answer someone else's question now. They say you didn't send this one in. There you go. You highlighted a shift from instant response to instant readiness as a top priority for 2025. What practical first steps would you recommend for organizations just beginning to mature their readiness posture?
Yeah, right. And you actually gave me an easy one because I kind of already
Be
spoke.
nice. My mother's from Cork.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
I have to be nice.
Yeah, the whole presentation was kind of around this, right? I think organizations, first of all, need to look at themselves. Risk assessments, take a look at their own vulnerabilities, see where the gaps are, see themselves where they think they need to improve. But I think what's the golden sauce in this, or the magic sauce, whatever you want to call it, is reaching out to a trusted advisor, right? Going to an MSSP, an MSP, a partner, somebody who's incredibly well certified, who's got a lot of experience. They can be absolutely key to an organization setting themselves up in the correct and right way. Otherwise, you could run down the road of, I don't know, picking the wrong tools with not many people or lacking the knowledge to actually implement them themselves. So it's really, really important that organizations, first of all, take a look at themselves, figure it out, and then go to a trusted advisor for a second opinion, see what they're doing.
Right, great advice.
Thanks, Paul.
No worries. So, Josh, onto your good self. Actually, this is one that just caught my eye here. Is Theta Lake a fully cloud-based solution? First of all, where did the name Theta Lake come from?
I think it's a play on data lake, but yeah, it's Theta. So Theta is a ThetaCon. It's kind of the intelligence we're all seeing. This is what we're told from the States, so it's not. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. So, are you is the company based in the States?
We are. We're based in Santa Barbara, but global. Yeah.
Okay, so how does that all work with the European side of things and cloud-based and?
Yeah, so again, I touched on it, but global data center storage. So we leverage AWS and Azure. We are a fully cloud-based business organization. However, for much of our enterprise customers, tier one banks, they don't really want to leverage our cloud. They already have an archive that they might have invested millions into. That could be on-prem, that could be hybrid, that could be cloud-based. So in that instance, we can actually act as a connector, connect the the modality, say for example, Zoom phone that their current archive can't quite capture, and then send that straight downstream into their existing archive of record. So it's making sure that they're compliant. We can act as that connector for them, or they can leverage our cloud-based storage. But back to your point about how do we work globally, we can segment that data, as we said, APAC into Singapore, US into North America, Canada into Canada, by region, by legislation, UK, EMEA. So really the customer can decide how and where their data is stored, for how long, whether that's 7, 10 years, and also when that's purged and where that's sent to. So a lot of organisations in our industry have got quite a bad rep. You might have heard holding data hostage, where they're charging companies big exit fees to get their data out that they've archived with them for a really long time. With us, your data is your data. You can move it, you can send it, you can do with it what you like. We're big believers in the fact that, we're just there to enable your technology as a partner.
Okay, brilliant. Audience, any questions for the panel? Are we sure? Not one question? God, you're getting an easy show today. Okay, I'll go on to another round of questions here, guys. So, actually, I'm going to start with you, Josh. Like, in Trump, tariffs, US-based company, are you finding it difficult to work in other regions of the world?
Yes and no. I think obviously from the way that I think Trump is approaching the economy is he's kind of opening the floodgates. Obviously, he's looking at it as being less stringent as opposed to more stringent.
Yeah.
But there is always going to be a need for compliance, whether you're in the States, whether you're in EMEA or the UK, which very closely follows our distant cousin over there, right behind. There's always that legislation that we need to help our customers with, always those regulators that we need to satisfy. But obviously, the political economy is always going to have a sway on that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Keane, I think you were mentioning, when we talk about SMBs and so on, the recent NIS2 report, the European Cybersecurity Agency, called out that SMBs in particular are very vulnerable and very exposed. They make up essentially 80% of the backbone of the economy, certainly of Ireland anyway. Sure. And so what are you finding in the market, or what's your feelings in relation to the guidance they're getting? And before you answer, let me explain this, right? When we talk about SMBs, SMB means something completely different in the United States as regards size of company, so on, to what it means in Ireland. And when I was talking earlier on to people, I was talking that I'm coming across lots of companies that have less than 10 employees and maybe have 10 computers in the office, and they can't find people to help them with cybersecurity. They can't find any solutions. And they're business owners that are, maybe not expert on IT and so on like that. So given that context, what's your feelings or your view on that kind of smaller business model, especially within Ireland?
Yeah, right. And I think I kind of see, I personally kind of see two situations, right? You go to SMBs and you can have customers who are ignorant and need a lot of education. Then you have the other side of it, and you've got customers who are completely up to speed with everything, and they're suffering with incredible anxiety for exactly what Paul said. Yeah. They are not equipped, they don't have the skill set, they don't have the knowledge, and they're trying to look around and say, geez, I don't even have the cash to try and figure this out. And it's really very, very challenging for organizations. It's probably a third category in Ireland as well, where you've got a bunch of cowboys who make a lot of money and are kind of like, we'll be grand, it'll be fine. But yeah, certainly there really is a big challenge in that, and our model internationally outside of the United States is we only work with MSPs, MSSPs, distribution, resellers. We're trying to provide high-level security grade services for these organizations to get out to these local customers. It's challenging, it's fun, and it's been quite a roller coaster ride for the last 8 years of my life, that's for sure.
Good stuff, brilliant. Lorna, can I focus the question with you around the same kind of market space? I know you're dealing with MSSPs as well and working out there, but if you were talking, if you're a small business there and they've got a budget and they go, education or a firewall, I get a nice appliance and I feel the comfort of having a box in the office. Make the case for education.
I don't know if anybody was in my previous pitch, but yeah, so obviously you need to invest in your infrastructure. It makes complete sense. And, you know, I like the fact that with Renaissance, they have a lot of small businesses and, you know, they can offer solutions that are across all spectrums of budget. We are very low cost. We've proven we're very low cost and we offer 4 modules for one price. So you invest in your infrastructure, but it's fundamental that you invest in your people. Now, some companies, like you mentioned, they're smaller businesses, so they want to scale out. So they might say to us, look, can we just do the 4 key people at the top first and get them trained and experience it? And we're like, yeah, you can import them and then slowly grow the business. We are, you know, you pay for what you use. So we're not asking for a year-long commitment up front. We're flexible. So businesses, I had my own reseller business and we went from 2 people to 8 people to 6 people to 8 people to 2 people to no people. But, you know, you have to scale and we commit to helping small business. So we don't care if it's 1 person or 25 people or like our big one, 25,000. We treat each with the same respect and the same educational needs. And quite often the bigger companies are more of a headache because they think they know more, but actually they quite often don't. So we try and maintain flexibility.
Yeah. So it's low cost but high value would be how I'd put you guys as well from dealing with you as well. Michael, this is an interesting one for me because I'm totally on the page with you, but it does my nut in that people don't realize the threats related to mobile technology and devices, handsets. We carry this surveillance device around with us 24/7. We wake up bleary-eyed. We trust it. Sleep with it by our heads, the pillow, and you wake up, you boom, and you're so much more susceptible, so much more vulnerable to be duped and to click on something. So let's have one discussion and let's talk about the fact that iPhones are not safe because everyone thinks iPhones are safe, right? We know they're not, right? Do we want to share that with the audience? So they just think, well, you're not a Samsung, you know, blah, blah, blah. But these are real risks. And when you see these threats operating on them, it's something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll start first of all saying that we scanned so far over 350 million applications. They're in our repository. MSPs get access to that. Customers get access to that. There is loads of iOS malware in there that is still available on iOS app stores. And obviously with the new EU regulations, now you've got to have an open environment with iOS as well. So you can now sideload on iOS. You can technically do it anywhere, but hey-ho. In Lookout's 2024 Mobile Threat Landscape Report, there are twice as many clicks on phishing links on iOS devices than there were on Android devices, because major corporations think that iOS is secure. So all their employees have an iOS device. So when they're tailoring the phishing messages down, the phishing messages are generally tailored toward iOS because it's lucrative. You're a bigger target, you're a corporate organization. And phishing does work slightly different on iOS than it does on Android as well. They tried to put new mechanisms in place where you say Y or N to say yes or no, I want to be able to receive that link. Social engineering gets through. We're useless big bags of pink skin that will click on yes because we want to get Netflix for free. So social engineering still works. On the iOS ecosystem, if you look at any of the major attacks that came from cyber spyware vendors or from nation states, they were generally on iOS and they were filled from vulnerabilities. Think back to every time you've updated iOS over the past year. I think we're into something like 16 updates. Every single one of those updates was not because of just a vulnerability that was actively being exploited and found. If you go to the CEXI KEV, which is the Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog, CEXI list every single vulnerability that they know in the wild has been exploited by a threat actor. And on iOS, that's been every single version. And some of the iOS attacks are the sexiest. I love them. They're fantastic. At the BlastPass attack, for example, vulnerability in the operating system, I could send you a QR code through iMessage. All you had to do was receive it, not even open it. That fully compromised your device, jailbroke it, made it look like it was turned off, gave them access to your key logs, your chat conversations, your location, your camera, your microphone, everything inside that device. End of days, exactly the same attack, but I'm going to send you a calendar invite for the past. You don't get to see the calendar invite because the date has passed, but as soon as you receive that calendar invite through iCalendar, I've got complete compromise of your device. I can listen into that microphone anywhere in the world. And the best one, which happened against Kaspersky, and this was only last year, Kaspersky had been hit for 3 years. They had malware inside of all their iOS devices, and it had been in there for 3 years. If you read their report, Op Triangulation, it's fascinating. Kaspersky actually found that inside an iOS device, there was free memory address space available that was not documented by Apple. It wasn't called upon by their software. It wasn't anywhere inside their kernel. So there's this little bit of memory space that lives inside an iPhone device that nobody knows what it does, why it's there, and it's not documented at all. Yet some attacker somewhere in the world found out about this, implanted malware in there, and infiltrated Kaspersky for 3 years. So everyone thinks it's secure, but it only makes it more of a concentrated effort for the hackers to actually get in through an iOS device because it's far more lucrative.
Well, that's the microphone drop moment. I mean, that's absolutely it. Like, you know, and that's it. I think there's a fallacy of security. People want to hear what they want to believe, and they want to believe that's okay. I'm using, an Apple iPhone or whatever, and I don't have any risks or don't have any threats or whatever. This is just, you've got to get right through it. At the end of the day, it's all technology. I think we'd find that address space in the kernel that's being used. There's a little agency in the United States probably have access to that, but there you go. You know, so that's exactly who's using that. It's a surveillance device. You pay for it. You carry it around all day long, and it tracks everything you do. So there you go. Anybody wants to know more about that? Watch the video of me and Edward Snowden having chats about it. So anyway, guys, has anybody got any questions before I close? Because I got somebody spinning their hand back at the back of the room.
Or the iPhone.
Over to Michael.
Yeah, endpoint protection. First start, you would not dare deploy a corporate laptop without some sort of endpoint protection on there, some sort of antivirus, anti-malware. It's exactly the same with mobile device. It is available. It's not difficult. Lookout been around since 2007. Incidentally, the first year that the iPhone came out, first year the iPhone vulnerability came out as well. We were instrumental with Citizen Lab in detecting Pegasus on the very first instance it was detected on. So we've got concerted effort. We need to keep ahead of the attackers. We're always working with Apple. We're always working with Google. Just deploying an agent like that for personal use, you can download it from Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. It is available for personal use. Corporate use is very, very easy to deploy as well. There's government friends out there in the space who are equally just as good. There are some that are actually terrible and might think that they're good as well. I won't go to them quite that, that's fairly obvious. But yeah, there are solutions out there.
Okay.
It's about defense in depth. I'm not going to tell you that our agent will 100% catch Pegasus on your device. But that defense in depth, we can start looking at C2 communication, start looking at vulnerabilities, start looking at other vectors of attacks, and then somewhere on that chain it will detect it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions, guys, just before we close? We sure? Last chance to get this expert panel. A lot of knowledge in the room. Any more questions? Guys, I want to thank the panel for the time, for their energy, for the knowledge that they've shared and the wisdom. And thank you all. Hope you're having a good time so far at this event. I know it's coming close to the end, and we go there. How many times did I say is any further questions? That just as I did that, I think we got a question. Do you have a question? Or you just... I saw a hand going up and I went... Right. Preemptive clap. Well done. Good man. Cheers. Thanks, guys.